Hidden Messages in Water by Masaru Emoto. The Hidden Messages in Water is magnificent. Through his genius photography and superb scientific skill, Dr. Masaru Emoto has created a book that is truly a mystical treasure. His contribution to research in spiritual consciousness is positively masterful. From Caroline M. Miss, author of Sacred Contracts and Anatomy of Spirit. We like her! Yeah, she says about the body and which parts of the body hold what emotions, doesn't she? Yeah. As with Galileo, Newton and Einstein, Dr. Emoto's clear vision helps us see ourselves and our universe differently. Science and spirit unite, resulting in a profound and undeniable quantum leap in how we view our world and how we can reclaim our health and create peace. And that's from Marcus Lowe, ND, editor at Naturally Well Today. And the last quote from Noel C. Nelson, PhD, co-author of The Power of Appreciation. Dr. Emoto's work with water beautifully illustrates the healing power of love and gratitude. These building blocks of appreciation support our well-being in body, mind, heart and soul. The Hidden Messages in Water is a most valuable contribution to the creation of a positive future for our world. The Hidden Messages in Water introduces the revolutionary work of internationally renowned Japanese scientist Masaru Emoto, who has discovered that molecules of water are affected by our thoughts, words and feelings. Since humans and the earth are composed mostly of water, his message is one of personal health, global environmental renewal and a practical plan for peace that starts with each one of us. This book has the potential to profoundly transform your worldview. Using high-speed photography, Dr. Masaru Emoto discovered that crystals formed in frozen water reveal changes when specific concentrated thoughts are directed towards them. He found that water from clear springs and water that has been exposed to loving words shows brilliant, complex and colourful snowflake patterns. In contrast, polluted water or water exposed to negative thoughts forms incomplete, asymmetrical patterns with duller colours. The implications of this research create a new awareness of how we can positively impact the earth and our personal health. The Hidden Messages in Water by Masaru Emoto, translated by David A. Thane. In memory of my maternal grandfather, aunts and uncles. Contents. Introduction. Prologue. Chapter 1. Of what is the universe made? Chapter 2. The portal into a different world. Chapter 3. Consciousness creates all. Chapter 4. The world will change in but a moment. Chapter 5. A smile that fills the world. An epilogue. I invite you, if you so wish, to close your eyes or to do an open eye meditation focusing on the rose in front of you, while I bring in the frequencies, first of all, of the weighted 128 Hertz weighted tuning fork, which brings us into relaxation and into the body, in combination with the 136.10 Hertz tuning fork, which is the heart chakra. Whether your eyes are open or closed, feel free to place your hands somewhere on the body that's needed. Maybe your belly, maybe your heart, maybe both, or somewhere else. Hand on the forehead's a very nurturing place. And bring your awareness, your attention, your focus, witness, observe the flow, the movement of your breath. Are you breathing through your nose or your mouth or both? Are you aware of the length of the inhalation and the length of the exhalation? Is one shorter or longer than the other? Are you aware of the space, the pause between the inhalation and exhalation? Between the exhalation and the inhalation? Are you aware of the change in temperature and the passageway of which the inhalation and the exhalation takes up the nostrils and down the nostrils? Bringing in orange, the sacral chakra. Have a little shake in whatever position you're seated in, laying in, standing in. Keeping your awareness and your focus on your breath. And the position of the tongue in your mouth, is it relaxed? Is it clenched? Is your jaw clenched? Can you feel any tension in your body? If so, shake it away and buzz it away. The orange chakra is strengthened by the root chakra, so now we are bringing in the orange and the root. The sacral is the second and the root is the red. Keeping any sounding, shaking, buzzing while your attention is focused on your breath. Breathing deeply in. Maybe having a gentle pause and breathing in a bit more. And sighing out. This time, breathing out. Gentle pause and breathe out again. Just keeping the witness on the breath, but maybe your awareness was brought to the attention that when you blew out first, you could take a deeper inhale perhaps. There's lots of difference patterning to the breath. It's up to one to experiment themselves, to get to know their body and what their body, their mind, their heart, their breath is telling them. And the breath is the only one that doesn't lie. The breath is what yokes, joins one's mind to one's body, one's mind to one's heart. But we live in a society where people do not breathe properly, or do not breathe to the full capacity. So we're putting down the orange sacral chakra tuning fork, and we're bringing up the solar plexus yellow tuning fork of 126.22 Hertz. And this is using, if anyone knows photography, the law of thirds. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So red goes 2 steps forward up to yellow, but then yellow needs to step back 1 to orange to strengthen it. sighing out, shaking, making sound, and breathing in, and bringing yourself, or buzzing yourself, or sounding yourself to a place of stillness and calm. Either with your open-eyed meditation, open eyes focuses on the external body, the external world. If your eyes are closed, you're focusing on your internal body, your internal world. And feel and listen from your whole body the words that are read. Introduction. More than 10 years have passed since I began taking photographs of frozen ice crystals. For years before that, I had conducted research into the measurement of wave fluctuations in water. But when I started learning about crystals, I discovered that water expresses itself in a vast variety of ways. I learned that these photographs of crystals are filled with much wisdom for us. In contrast to tap water, natural water displays a beautiful array of crystals, even more so when the natural water is exposed to beautiful music. There are also fascinating differences generated in the crystals when the water is shown different words, such as gratitude or stupid. These crystals are filled with lessons concerning how we should and must live our lives. In June 1999, I published a collection of photographs in a book called The Messages of Water from a small publishing company that I called HIDDE Koyoi-kusha, Wave Fluctuation Publishing. Although this book was self-published and not intended to be sold in the large bookstores, word of mouth resulted in it becoming a bestseller. This is something that almost never happens in the publishing industry. I was filled half with amazement as this was happening right in front of my eyes, and half with appreciation for the many people who took the time to tell others about the book. In order to share my book with more people, I had all the Japanese explanations translated for an English version. This led to further successes, and I began receiving requests from Switzerland and other countries throughout the world to give lectures. The publishing of these crystal photographs, with the many messages that they have for the world, couldn't have come at a more appropriate moment in history. And it may well be a sign of the times that so many people are receptive of these messages. I thank God that I have been given the opportunity to work in this capacity. I understand that some people have difficulty with the word or concept God. The main focus in this book is water, and the more you understand water, the more difficult you will find it to deny the existence of a God, or whatever word. We used to have trouble with the word God, but the God can be whatever word you want it to be: love, light, spirit, universal energy, multiversal energy. We like the one energy. I'd like you to think about your feelings on this topic as you look through the crystal photographs found herein. When I was first asked to write this book for Sunmark Publishing in Japan, I immediately knew that there were many marvellous things inside me that I wanted to write about. And when I told this to Nobutaka Ueki, president of Sunmark Publishing, he said that was what he wanted me to focus on. He even sent along a subordinate, Ryuya Saito, to hear my lectures in Switzerland. Now that the book is finished, I am filled with a sense of satisfaction. This book has given me a stage from which to speak to you about the fluctuation, theories that I have studied for more than a decade, and also about my own experiences, my research based on the observation of human behaviour and my own thoughts concerning the cosmos. I wish to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to Masashi Tanigawa, president of Kokoro Inc., Naoki Yuchiki, chief editor of Sunmark, Tatsuyai Sato, and also to the people who I interviewed for this book. I also owe appreciation to Tetsuya Taguchi, past presidents of Nichire Ice Inc., who provided much of the water that I used to make the crystals introduced in this book. Thank you to Beyond Words Publishing for publishing this book in English, so that more people around the world can read about our relationship with water. I must not forget to offer my gratitude to all the readers of this book. And finally, I must say thank you and pay my respects to the water of the cosmos. Thank you. Prologue. As you begin reading this book, I'd like to ask you to evaluate your life. More specifically, I'd like you to ask yourself if you are happy. Of course, your definition of happiness will depend upon who you are. But do you have a sense of peace in your heart, a feeling of security about your future, and a feeling of anticipation when you wake up in the morning? If we can call this happiness, then would you say that at this moment you are happy? I think I can safely say that not many people will be able to reply with a resounding yes. Most people are unable to say that their life is everything they had hoped it would be. What is it that causes us so much pain? What is going on in the world that prevents so many people from simply being happy? It seems to me that we are living in an age of chaos. Chaos describes a condition of confusion, indicative of the unorganised matter that existed before the creation of the cosmos. Simply by going about our lives, we find ourselves worn out and fatigued. Newspapers and television bombard us with information, and at work we face problems and misunderstandings. The sources of our problems seem numerous and overwhelming. This is likely to be a fact of life no matter where in the world we go. This tiny planet of ours is covered with economic conflict, domestic discord, ethnic prejudice, environmental distress, religious wars, and every other type of problem imaginable. And all the bad news about people suffering, people enjoying the suffering, people getting richer, people getting poorer, the oppressed and the oppressors, reaches us within a matter of seconds from the opposite side of the globe. Who, might we ask, is responsible for all this suffering? The world is becoming an ever more divided, estranged, and complicated place to live. We are already up to our necks in chaos, But the world's troubles seem to be getting deeper and deeper. One thing we all have in common is that we are looking for a way out. Everyone is looking for an answer, and it is an answer so simple and effective that it has heretofore eluded us. So, what is the cause of all this chaos? What is at the centre of it all? Whatever it is pushing the world away from harmony and towards discord. Perhaps this is an inevitable phenomenon, though we all belong to the same species. If we live in different places and in different skin ways, the way we think is bound to be different. And to make matters worse, most people have difficulty accepting things that are unlike the things around them. The result is a never-ending process of troubles and suffering. It would seem that as long as people are people, any solution proposed is certain to come up short. And so now, we are back where we started. Can there ever be a single solution that can apply to all people on the globe? That everyone can be convinced of, and that is so simple that everyone can understand it? In fact, I have found the answer, and it is just this. The average human body is 70% water. We start out life being 99% water as fetuses. When we are born, we are 90% water, and by the time we reach adulthood, we are down to 70%. If we die of old age, we will probably be about 50% water. In other words, I just saw that it disconnected then, so I'm just going to read that last bit again. Can there ever be a single solution that can apply to all of people on the globe? And this applies into our living by the cycles of the moon. The moon affects the gravitational pull of the tidal waves and the tide, the sea. The moon also makes the seasons, affects the seasons. So why would the moon not affect us if we are 70% water? Can there ever be a single solution that can apply to all people on the globe? That everyone can be convinced of, and that is so simple that everyone can understand it? In fact, I have found the answer, and it is just this. The average human body is 70% water. We start out life being 99% water as fetuses. When we are born, we are 90% water, and by the time we reach adulthood, we are down to 70%. If we die of old age, we will probably be about 50% water. In other words, throughout our lives, we exist mostly as water. From a physical perspective, humans are water. When I realised this and started to look at the world from this perspective, I began to see things in a whole new way. First, I realised that this connection to water applies to all people. Therefore, what I'm about to say applies to everyone, all over the world. I believe I am also starting to see the way that people should live their lives. So how can people live happy and healthy lives? The answer is to purify the water that makes up 70% of your body. Water in a river remains pure because it is moving. When water becomes trapped, it dies. Therefore, water must constantly be circulated. The water or blood in the body of the sick is usually stagnant. When blood stops flowing, the body starts to decay, and if the blood in your brain stops, it can be life-threatening. But why does blood become stagnant? Yes, it would be good if we had our blood tuning fork out here, but we don't. But we have used our blood tuning fork today, so we have tuned up the frequency of our blood back to its optimum resonant frequency. So are you happy? Yeah, good. But why does blood become stagnant? We can see this condition as the stagnation of the emotions. Modern researchers have shown that the condition of the mind has a direct impact on the condition of the body. When you are living a full and enjoyable life, you feel better physically. And when your life is filled with struggles and sorrow, your body knows it. So when your emotions flow throughout your body, you feel a sense of joy and you move towards physical health. Moving, changing, flowing, this is what life is all about. And the water element in the body takes the linear channels, if I'm not mistaken. If we consider, and the breath, the air in the body takes a circular spinning channel which is produced by the lungs, if I'm not mistaken. If we consider that before we became human beings, we existed as water, we get closer to finding the answer to the basic question of what a human being is. If we have a clear understanding of water, we will better understand the human body, and even unlock the mystery of why we were born and exist as we do. So, just what is water? Your first answer might be that it is a life force. If we lose 50% of the water in our bodies, we can no longer maintain life. Water carried by blood and bodily fluids is the means by which nourishment is circulated throughout our bodies. This flow of water enables us to live active lives. Water serves as the transporter of energy throughout our body. This transport of energy is similar to a freight car that moves throughout the body. If the body is clogged and soiled, then the cargo in the freight car will also become filthy, and so it is essential that water always remain clean. More now than in the past, the medical community has begun to see water as a transporter of energy, and it is even being used in the treatment of illness. Homeopathy is one such field where the value of water is recognised. Homeopathy originated in Germany in the first half of the 19th century with the work of Samuel Hahnemann, but its roots go back to which is 1791 to 1843, but its roots go back to the father of medicine, Hippocrates, 460 C to 370 BC, who wrote down many treatments similar to those promoted by homeopathy. In a word, these pioneers of medicine taught us to treat like with like, fight poison with poison. For example, if someone is suffering from lead poisoning, symptoms can be alleviated by drinking water with the minutest amount of lead in it, an amount ranging 1 part in 10 to the 12, which is 1 trillion. So 10 trillion. To 1 part in 10 to 400. Exclamation mark. At this level, the matter no longer for practical purposes remains in the water, but the characteristics of the matter do remain, and this forms the medicine for treating lead poisoning. Similar for a snake bite as well, isn't it, and stuff? And even when you have vaccines and stuff put in you, they put a vaccine in you which is a little bit of the virus, isn't it? I believe. Homeopathy, also, while I'm here, there's a 4th stage to water. So you've got the solid, which is ice. You've got the gas or steam, which is like the gas, high vibrational frequency of water, hot water, when the atoms are moving really quickly. And then you have the liquid, which is in the middle. But one can drink enough water but still be dehydrated, and it's not just a deficiency of all your electrolytes and the rest of it. It's because you're not holding this 4th elemental state of water, which is plasma, I do believe. And you can get that 4th elemental stage through the pulp in fruit, through chia seeds, which is like soft fibre. So you need to have that squidgy, jelly, softy type stuff that holds the water to actually be hydrated. Homeopathy proposes that the greater the dilution, the greater the effectiveness. The logical conclusion is that the denser the poison in the body, the higher should be the dilution ratio. So that comes under the thing of less is more as well, and that's what we're attempting to do, isn't it, guys? Yeah. Another way to express this idea is that instead of the effect of the matter being used to get rid of the symptoms, the information copied to the water is being used to cancel out the information of the symptoms from the poison. So water has the ability to copy and memorise information. We may also say that the water of the oceans has memories of the creatures that live in the ocean. It's not that we're a drop in the ocean, we've got the possibilities of the ocean in a drop, just depending how much we decide to let go of our limiting left-hand 5% conscious mind. The Earth's glaciers may well contain millions of years of the planet's history. Water circulates around the globe, flowing through our bodies and spreading to the rest of the world. If we were capable of reading this information contained in the memory of water, we would read a story of epic proportions. To understand water is to understand the cosmos, the marvels of nature and life itself. I have studied water for many years. The realisation that water has the ability to copy information has changed my life. After making this discovery in America, I brought it back with me to Japan and have since used the information copying function of water to help people recover their health. At that time, however, doctors would not even consider the possibility that water by itself had healing capabilities. I was and am fully convinced that water is able to memorise and transport information, but this suggestion has been met with complete rejection by the medical community. In 1988, the French scientist Jacques Benveniste undertook an experiment to test the basic principles of homeopathy. He diluted a medicine with water to the point where the medicine was no longer detectable by clinical means. And then he discovered that this dilution had the same effect on patients as the undiluted medicine. A year after he submitted his results to the British scientific journal Nature, they were finally published, along with the comment that the results of the experiment were doubtful and without any physical proof. The hypothesis has remained buried and forgotten ever since. Whenever someone comes along with research and experiments that turn the scientific community on its ear, the reaction, to one degree or another, is usually the same. I long wondered if it might be possible to find physical evidence of the ability of water to memorise information. Might there be some way of seeing it with the physical eye? This is the same problem Nassim Haramein had, wasn't it, in Resonant Science Foundation? When your heart is open to possibilities, you start to notice small things that can lead to enormous discoveries. And one day, I casually opened a book to words that jumped off the page. No two snow crystals are exactly the same. Of course, I had learned this same thing in elementary school. The faces of all the snowflakes that have fallen on the earth for millions of years have all been different. However, I read this sentence as if it had a completely different meaning because my heart was open and receptive to its message. The next morning, 6 o'clock alarm went off there. I'm going to read that again. When your heart is open to possibilities, you start to notice small things that can lead to enormous discoveries. And one day, I casually opened a book to words that jumped off the page. No two snow crystals are exactly the same. Of course, I'd learned this same thing in elementary school. The faces of all the snowflakes that have fallen on the earth for millions of years have all been different. However, I read this sentence as if it had a completely different meaning because my heart was open and receptive to its message. The next moment, I thought, if I freeze water and look at the crystals, each one will look totally unique. And that moment marked my first step on an adventure into a new and unexplored world. My plan was to freeze water and take pictures of the crystals. It's my nature. not to want to sit on a fresh idea. I immediately asked a young researcher in my company to start experimenting. But this was a field that no one knew anything about. There was nothing to assure us that our efforts would eventually pay off. Oddly enough, I never doubted that they would. I knew with certainty that my hypothesis was correct and that the experiments would go well. I just knew it. I usually suffer from a critical shortage of perseverance, but this time I refused to give up. I refused to give up. My first step was to lease an extremely accurate microscope and look at water frozen in a kitchen refrigerator. However, since the photographs were taken at room temperature, the ice would soon melt. It took us quite some time before we were able to get any photographs of crystals. Late each evening, I would take the young researcher to dinner and try to encourage him. I told him that I only expected him to do his best. After 2 months of experiments, we finally succeeded in getting one photograph. The water gave us a photograph of a beautiful hexagonal crystal. I was filled with excitement when the researcher came to me with this news. I now have a large walk-in refrigerator where the temperature is maintained at -5 degrees, 23 degrees Fahrenheit, for experimenting. But it all started with that first photograph. Considering the method we used and what I now know, it was quite miraculous that we were able to get that first photograph at all. What you really know is possible in your heart is possible. We make it possible by our will. What we imagine in our minds becomes our world. That's just one of many things that I have learned from water. The crystal photographs that I started taking proved to be extremely eloquent in expressing the world. I found within them a profound philosophy. Crystals emerge for only 20 or 30 seconds as the temperature rises and the ice starts to melt. The truths of the cosmos take shape and become visible, if only for a few moments. This short window of time gives us a glimpse into a world that is indeed magical. Let me explain how I go about taking photographs of crystals. I put 50 different types of water in 50 different Petri dishes. I used 100 during the first few years. I then freeze the dishes at -20 degrees, which is -4 Fahrenheit, for 3 hours in a freezer. The result is that surface tension forms drops of ice in the Petri dishes, about 1 millimetre across. The crystal appears when you shine a light on the crown of the drop of ice. Of course, the result is never 50 similar crystals, and sometimes no crystals at all are formed. When we graph the formation of the crystals, we realise that different water formed different crystals. Some of them were clearly similar, and some were deformed, and in some types of water, no crystals at all formed. First, I looked at the crystals of tap water from different locations. The water of Tokyo was a disaster. Not a single complete crystal was formed. Tap water includes a dose of chlorine used to sanitise it, utterly destroying the structure found in natural water. However, within natural water, no matter where it came from, natural springs, underground rivers, glaciers, and the upper reaches of rivers, complete crystals formed. My efforts to photograph ice crystals and conduct research began to move ahead. Then, one day the researcher, who was as caught up in the project as I, said something completely out of left field. Let's see what happens when Let's see what happens when we expose the water to music. I knew that it was possible for the vibrations of music to have an effect on water. I myself enjoyed music immensely and had even had hopes of becoming a professional musician as a child. And so, I was all in favour of this off-the-wall experiment. At first, we had no idea what music we would use and under what conditions we would conduct the experiment. But after considerable trial and error, we reached the conclusion that the best method was probably the simplest. Put a bottle of water on a table between two speakers and expose it to a volume at which a person might normally listen to music. We would also need to use the same water that we had used in previous experiments. We first tried distilled water from a drugstore. The results astounded us. Beethoven's Pastoral Sympathy, with its bright and clear tones, resulted in beautiful and well-formed crystals. Mozart's 40th Symphony, a graceful prayer to beauty, created crystals that were delicate and elegant. And the crystals formed by exposure to Chopin's Etude in E, OP 10, number 3, surprised us with their lovely detail. Our Auntie Ursula used to listen to the healing, all that classical music that's dedicated to different types of healing and relaxation. Yeah, she did, didn't she? All the classical music that we exposed the water to resulted in well-formed crystals with distinct characteristics. In contrast, the water exposed to violent, heavy metal music resulted in fragmented and malformed crystals at best. But our experimenting didn't stop there. We next thought about what would happen if we wrote words or phrases like thank you and fool on pieces of paper, and wrapped the paper around the bottles of water with the words facing in. It didn't seem logical for water to read the writing, understand the meaning, and change its form accordingly. But I knew from the experiment with music that strange things could happen. We felt as if we were explorers setting out on a journey through an unmapped jungle. The results of the experiments didn't disappoint us. Water exposed to thank you formed beautiful hexagonal crystals, but water exposed to the word fool produced crystals similar to the water exposed to heavy metal music, malformed and fragmented. Further experimenting showed that water exposed to positive expressions like let's do it created attractive, well-formed crystals. But that water exposed to negative expressions like do it barely formed any crystals at all. The lesson that we can learn from this experiment has to do with the power of words. The vibration of good words has a positive effect on our world, whereas the vibration from negative words has the power to destroy. Learning about water is like an exploration to discover how the cosmos works. And the crystals revealed through water are like the portal into another dimension. As we continued with our experiments and taking photographs of crystals, we found that we were setting out to climb the stairs towards an understanding of the profound truths of the cosmos. I particularly remember one photograph. It was the most beautiful and delicate crystal that I had so far seen, formed by being exposed to the words love and gratitude. It was as It was as if the water had rejoiced and celebrated by creating a flower in bloom. It was so beautiful that I can say that it actually changed my life from that moment on. Water had taught me the delicacy of the human soul and the impact that love and gratitude can have on the world. In Japan, it is said that words of the soul reside in a spirit called kotodama, or the spirit of words, and the act of speaking words has the power to change the world. We all know that words have an enormous influence on the way we think and feel, and that things generally go more smoothly when positive words are used. However, up until now, we have never been able to physically see the effect of positive words. Words are an expression of the soul, and the condition of our soul is very likely to have an enormous impact on the water and the cosmos as much as 70% of our body. And this impact will in no small way affect our bodies. People who are in good health are also generally in good spirits. Indeed, a healthy spirit most comfortably resides in a healthy body. Out of desire to help as many people as possible remain or become healthy. I had worked for years taking care of the sick. And the more afflicted people that I see, the more I become convinced that illness is not just an individual problem, but a result of the deformation of society as a whole. Unless something is done about the deformed world that we live in, and unless we can heal the wounded soul, the number of people suffering from physical illnesses will not decline. So what are the deformities of the world? These are the deformities of the soul, and such deformities have an impact on the cosmos itself. Just as a drop in a pond creates a ripple that spreads out endlessly, the deformity of even one soul spreads throughout the world, resulting in global deformities. Go on then, you can say it. Let's start the Gandhi quantum ripple effect. Be the change you want to see in the world. Shinto self-empowerment. Happy? Yeah. But all is not lost. There is hope. There is salvation. And it's called love and gratitude. Or as Shinto self-empowerment calls it, I think they call it something like 4 parts gratitude, 3 parts play, 2 parts joy, and 1 part unconditional love. The earth is searching. It wants to be beautiful. It wants to be the most beautiful that it can be. Earlier I said that we could define the human being as water. I am quite certain that the water in the people who look at the photographs of crystals and undergoes some form of change. I am quite certain that the water in the people who look at the photographs of crystals undergo some form of change. That's the thing of looking at artwork again, isn't it? Takes on the energy that's put into whatever's being created or put out there. And I have found the most beautiful crystal of all, the one created by love and gratitude. This is supposedly what all the world's religions are founded on. And if that were true, there would be no need for laws. You already know the answer. Love and gratitude are the words that must serve as the guide for the world. Water teaches in a very clear way how we must live our lives. The story of water reaches from every individual cell to encompass the entire cosmos. I hope that you will feel the same anticipation and excitement that I felt as I discovered the unfolding of this drama. And starting out next time when we continue reading this book will be chapter 1 of What is the Universe Made? Yes, and I think we've got another book that we're going to read out next, isn't it, which we weren't expecting, and that's the introduction of the sacred geometry and how the world's made of sacred geometry. Namaste all. Enjoy your evening, whenever you come, or day, or morning, afternoon, whenever you come to watch this, if you ever do. We'll be watching it soon because we enjoyed that. Au revoir, tout à l'heure. Namaste, Shinto self-empowerment.